Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
We are live again today on the Rebel News Daily live stream. My name is Andrew. I'm with Lewis, don't call him Scottish Brackpool, out of England. How are you, young man, today?
Yes, I'm very well. Thank you very much for letting me co-host with you today. It's going to be a blast.
We are here to bring you today's daily stories from rebelnews.com and around the world. We've got tons of great stuff to get to today, from Matthew McConaughey to England to Saskatchewan and all across the globe, or Flat Earth Plain if you prefer, Lewis. We've also going to be bringing in Kelly from Saskatchewan, a newer Rebel reporter, to talk about the possible separation their premier wants to have. He's touting that. Pretty strange stuff. We're going to bring her in. Of course, it's Remembrance Day in the Queen's countries across the world. I think Australia, UK, Canada, New Zealand, that sort of stuff. So we're going to be pausing and showing a video for that in about 10 minutes, as it's going to be another 11:11 in Saskatchewan at that time. We're on rumble.com, we're on Odyssey, we're on Super U. You can send us your paid chats there, Rumble rants, hyper chats, and the like, because YouTube demonetized us. I think it was last year at this point, maybe early January, I think. Can't remember. There's so much nonsense that goes on with YouTube, but it was over us showing a clip of President Trump. CNN showed the same clip. I don't see them being demonetized, so we can't accept super chat from there. So we are going to leave YouTube at some point after a couple segments, because we can't talk about vaccines, we can't talk about elections, we can't talk about, I don't know, zebras having white stripes instead of black stripes. That old controversy, Lewis. So eventually we'll switch over to the alternate platforms. You can catch the proper feed on rebelnews.com/live streams. Why don't you bring us up to date on, since you're British, of course, there's a John Cleese story out there. He's cancelling himself. I haven't seen a lot about this. Have you heard this?
Yes, a university was going to host him for a talk, and he decided to cancel himself due to being anti-woke, which fair play to him is what I say. You know what the universities are like. There's been stories coming out left, right and centre. There was recently a professor called Kathleen Stock who was cancelled for talking about trans issues, and now John Cleese is in the limelight once again for just being a little bit outspoken. So he's essentially cancelled himself before someone else could cancel him, which is the joke.
Well, I like John Cleese, especially in James Bond. Of course, his old comedy stuff I've been privy to my entire life on, Sunday afternoon television. For some reason, like, Sunday afternoon is when all the British television programs come on here in Canada. There's the old Whose Line Is It Anyway? There's, Monty Python stuff. So shout out to the original Clive Owen of Whose Line Is It Anyway? What a guy he was. All the British channels just populating here.
I bet you hate it secretly.
You've talked about. What's that?
I bet you hate it secretly.
Hate him secretly?
Hate it secretly.
Oh, hate it secretly? Yeah. No, I dabble, we've discussed Downton Abbey, if you want to get into that. We're a few series in. I know we don't call them seasons in England. I'm sure at some point we're going to have to Urban Dictionary something you say, so I'll try to keep it as British as we can up until that point. But I used to follow John Cleese a bit more, but he was very, and I think, hysterically anti-Trump at some points. As you can see, I'm wearing my Orange Man Bad t-shirt today. And I lost a little bit of, love for him there, but he's always been on the side of free speech and freedom of expression and the freedom to make jokes. So it's no surprise to me that he would do something like this. Right down to, I don't know how old he is. He's got to be in his 80, 83 at this point, I think. Even on Entourage, he was on a few episodes. He was politically incorrect. Is this the route we should start going, Lewis? Just, it seems like canceling yourself is one of the better career moves at this point, don't you think?
Maybe, I guess so. But what's the fun in that, eh? I think it's quite funny. You're starting to see a lot of people come out of the woodwork now and speak out against this, because people are getting sick of it. John Cleese has said that he is a liberal. So like you mentioned, he was staunchly anti-Trump. People like Rowan Atkinson as well, the classic Mr. Bean. He has been on the free speech brigade as well since God knows when. So he's been really going for it. So it's quite interesting to see these comedians really step out and show that they are free speeches, and kind of making a mockery of it as well.
Who can forget Mr. Bean, your national, probably your prime minister for a few years, if I had to imagine.
No. Well.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking forward. Everybody can look forward in the next couple of weeks to Lewis reenacting classic Mr. Bean episodes, specifically the one where he brushes his teeth using the toothpaste off the front of his car there. I'm sorry, Lewis. I can't help it. Yesterday I was interviewing somebody from North Carolina, and I was really surprised that I didn't mock the accent the entire time. I have trouble with that. I thought of you, so I was nicer to the other person on your behalf and then save all the animosity for you. What else we got here before we move on to Saskatchewan? Sorry, Lewis, what did you say?
I said this is why you had me on today, just to bully me, so that's fine.
Yeah, Rebel News Bully live stream is what we're doing here. We could talk about Saskatchewan. There it is. This is what started the war between me and Lewis, the Big Book of British Smiles reference on The Simpsons. Fresh in Your Drink Governor was another one we had there. Poor Lewis. The chat's just going to be poor Lewis. If you guys want to insult me through paid chats for making fun of Lewis, you can. Rumble rants and hyper chats. What do we got else here, producer, before we want to move to Saskatchewan? I know we had something else we were specifically supposed to talk about. No, not specifically. Okay, let's go ahead and start talking about Saskatchewan before we go to the moment and Kelly out west. So the Premier, Scott Moe, tweeted out that it's time for, I'm not sure what word he used. He used secession or separation of the province of Saskatchewan from the rest of Canada. This is something people talk about in the western provinces a lot, in the Midwest, in Alberta. It's never going to happen. I'm sorry for people. But it's just interesting. He seems to be playing out this role now after being one of the harshest pro-lockdown premiers in the country. He seems to be trying to reach out. That's my opinion. He seems to be reaching back out to, what he would probably want his base to be, or at least what you would think his base would be in order to get him elected again. So this is something that's popularized in a lot of places around the world. You can look at Spain, or you can look at the UK where you live. What's the general sentiment that's brought up when people talk about Scotland separating?
Oh, yes, that's a big topic over in the UK. I think a lot of it boils down to the SNP and their nationalism for Scotland and independence. I've spoken to a lot of working class Scottish people, and they are for keeping the union, a lot of them, and they've already have their referendum a few years back, and it came out that they wanted to keep the union. So I suspect that it's just Nicola Sturgeon wanting to cause trouble once again, which sounds about right.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time we've heard, Canada's had a long history of people trying to separate. Quebec had a referendum on it, I think 25 years ago. We want to bring something up, and Lewis, this wasn't my idea. This was actually the producer and writer Dave's idea. We want to bring up a map of Canada here and see if you can spot where Saskatchewan is. This seems cruel now. Can you, do you know which one Saskatchewan is?
Oh, gosh. Okay, yeah, so, we've got the cursor there.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm going to wait until you react. I want to say top left.
What are you, David Blaine? You're going to wait for my reactions? So you want to say that one?
Left a bit more.
That's that one. That's the one you're going with. Final answer?
No.
No?
No, I'm not
okay,
confident.
You're wrong. That's territory.
I'm so bad at provinces and states. Hang on.
It's actually this one right there where the cursor's on, right in the middle of the country. The two straight lines.
Right.
Now, I said it was a bit unfair to the producer and to Dave because Dave even wanted me to get you to find Toronto on the map, and I was like, I'm not going to find, if we go to like Scotland or something, I know Edinburgh somewhere in the top part.
Yeah.
So
let's do that as well then. Let's have that. Bring up a map of Scotland and find where Glasgow is and let him point out.
Fine, let's do it. If we can do that, then I think that's only fair. Maybe we have to bring that up after the break here, or unless you can find the map right now, producer Andrew. Okay, so it's about to be, Lewis, you're not getting your wish right now. We'll have to do it after the Saskatchewan talk. Write your angry letters to Dave while you're at it. So in Saskatchewan, it's about to be 11/11, Remembrance Day. You're supposed to have a moment of silence. We've got a video that just happened, and we're going to play that. And we're going to bring in Kelly from Saskatchewan right after. So let's take a few moments to have our thoughts here for those in the past wars. So if you have a relative or you yourself were part of the world, everything from World War I, II, Korea, Afghan War, all these different things, thank you for your service. Disappointed to see all the masks. I'd like to see the science behind that, of course, but let's take it for the moment for what it is a nice thing to remember people by. I think we have Kelly Lamb ready to come in from Saskatchewan. Is that true, producer? All right, let's go ahead and bring her in, get her opinion on what's going on here in Saskatchewan with the Prime Minister. So Kelly Lamb has been with us for, I think, a couple months now, maybe 1 to 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. She's covering the stuff out there where Lewis could not identify. It's not in the Arctic Circle. Probably feels like that sometimes, doesn't it, Kelly?
Yeah, we have about 7 to 8 inches of snow on our deck as we speak, so sometimes it feels a little Arctic, and no hard feelings at all there, Lewis. I'll let this one slide, but we need some geography lessons for everyone, Stat.
We do.
Are we going to get her on video, or is this okay, we've got her on.
This is a call only for now, yeah.
Okay, so Kelly, tell us about Scott Moe here. I was not a fan of his pandemic response. Of course, they had a whole bunch of closures for religious centers and, of course, businesses. They were among the most stringent, maybe second only to Quebec. What's the feeling here? What do you think spawned him to come out and say this?
Well, I would love to know what Scott Moe is thinking and feeling at this point, but I'm at a loss. And I know I'm only supposed to be here for 10 minutes, but I wonder how much time you guys have, because this is absolutely, I mean, if he had said this a year and a half ago, I would have been cheering. I didn't actually vote for Moe in our last election. I voted for the Buffalo Party because I believe in, even though I know separation probably isn't viable, I certainly believe in more autonomy, but not just for us. I believe in autonomy for each province. I think that we all have very unique demographics and cultures and unique issues to be addressed. So especially when it comes to healthcare, for sure. I mean, a lot of what he's saying, I can't argue with it. It's great to have a more personalized police force and taxation. That's all really fine and dandy. Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to achieve when you've segregated your own supposed sovereign society into two groups of people and are discriminating against a good, 25 to 30% of them. So I'm on this side. I was on the steps of the legislative not too long ago, covering a rally of people that just want to work, and they're not able to work because of these mandates that have come in. And they were chanting for Scott Moe to come on out. And of course, the mainstream media disparaged this as violent and threatening and claimed they had to cancel some wonderful event they were going to do outside. But these horrible, horrible protesters with their awful views were just so threatening. I can't speak to whether a threat came in separately. There was no mention. But the protest I saw was just regular people really concerned about how they were going to feed their kids. And I'm really disgusted that all of a sudden now he's going to champion the cause of autonomy and getting away from big government and having independence. These are sentiments that are very deeply sort of ingrained in us here, and yet we don't get to have that as citizens, and many of which voted for him. So I don't believe a word he says, and I think he's a liar. And at this point, I don't know what he wants, but I don't trust him at all. And if I sound terse, it's because this has affected me in multiple ways, not just watching people that I respect being just torn apart and losing their jobs, just wonderful, good-hearted people. But my husband has stepped down in protest with his job for this one that he just went back to school for 3 years. My mom is being harassed in her senior's condo over this. I have a lot of sort of, I guess, stake in this, and it's very disappointing. And until he addresses those citizens, because he sat like a coward in that legislature and did not come out, unlike Nadine Wilson, the independent MLA who I spoke with, who had the courage and compassion and humanity to stand on those steps and at least say, I'm so sorry, to the people that he couldn't even face. He's a coward and a liar, and I have no idea what he's up to. But if he'd said this 2 years ago, I'd be rejoicing. And as it stands, I'm just disgusted. I don't know what he's thinking, and I don't know what his base is thinking. To be fair, our base has rolled over, but I don't know. It's really disappointing. Sorry for the rant, but it's really disappointing.
No, that's okay. And I just want to point out, of course, that it's hard to tell people that, you should be supporting this autonomy and separation of powers, if you will, after you just spent a year and a half taking away people's rights and saying that they don't have the right to congregate religiously, socially, or in many cases for the business that you want to run. And Lewis, I want to let you ask Kelly a question in a moment, but Kelly, I want to ask you, what is the feeling here? Where do the voters who are conservatives go if Scott Moe isn't the person to represent them? We've seen all the provincial parties that are supposed to be conservative in the last year, shift their policies to the left to adhere to some crowd that frankly doesn't like them and never will. What is your thought and what is your feeling as to where and how voters should move their opinions and, move with their feet or move with their vote in the next coming elections? And basically, should they sway their support away from his party or not? What do you think?
Well, that's, we have a few choices other than Moe, and Buffalo did quite well in the last election, really quite well. I think better than most expected, especially in certain regions, in particular where oil and gas is a strong industry. So especially where I come from in the sort of Estevan-Weyburn region, they did quite well. So I'm a fan of other parties, but there's independent candidates doing better things. I mentioned Nadine Wilson. There's a couple of other options, conservative options. I think that those conservative options are going to have to find some unity in order for us to gain any ground. And so I don't have a party recommendation because, quite frankly, I'd like to see Buffalo standing up a little more for this freedom movement as well when it comes to these mandates and how it's affecting regular folks. I'd really like to see a little bit more of that kind of fighting spirit in us. And I'm not sure what the whole base is thinking, because fear has overtaken this province more than I thought it would. And what I thought was common sense and logic isn't quite the same anymore as in so many parts of the world. But there's still at least some people here that recognize that what's happening is outrageous. And the regular people are not like the rabid folks on Twitter that just want to call everybody names and assume you're stupid and selfish for not taking a medical treatment. It's not like that. Most people are okay with other people's choices, but the division, and Scott Moe himself, and I think that's the issue here, has been pushing this division. He's been saying horribly divisive things and really berating a whole segment of the population. So people are going to have to ask themselves whether they trust someone like that, I guess. And I think we need a party with some humility. I do at least know some people that are talking about, the meanderings of discussing new parties, but there's nothing set in stone. But when something comes up that I feel I could get behind, I will let you guys know, absolutely. But as it stands, yeah, I would recommend not supporting Scott Moe, or at least sending him some democratically or diplomatically rather worded letters, which he probably won't answer. I know this from experience, or you'll get a very vague non-answer. But no, I wouldn't support somebody that thinks this is okay and that is okay with berating and dividing his society. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a very common theme these days, as we see even in New Zealand. You ask questions that are not ass-kissing questions, and we can't have a press conference at all. Lewis, any questions for Kelly out there?
Yeah, where do you see the country going at this present standpoint? We've obviously touched upon Scott Moe. Where do you see it going?
The country, I'm generally the positive person. If you're not supposed to read comments when you do these sorts of jobs, but I read some of the comments, and people are like, "You're too nice. You need to be more angry. You need to face the harsh truth and essentially be more black-pilled." But I think people don't see me frustrated and swearing outside of the camera at times. There's a lot of frustration when it comes to how I see this going. I'm very, very concerned that people here are very comfortable, and I think what concerns me the most is not that the government is doing this to us. I expected that. I'm not generally trusting of the government. What I didn't expect was the population to just roll over so easily over in fear. And especially on this Remembrance Day, this is something that's a theme that's difficult to even see. Just there's I don't know, there's just no one's, we ask the bare minimum of someone just to stand up and speak bravely and maybe have some words thrown at them on social media, and they just don't want to feel it, they don't want to deal. And we're so comfortable and so blessed here because of the sacrifice of other people that we are going to lose these things because we are unwilling to stay vigilant. And I think that's the most disturbing part, is the complacency and comfort. People think they're uncomfortable now talking about it. Wait until this becomes far more dictatorial than it already is. You can use the guise of health, you can use the guise of whatever you want. Other nations, other regimes have done this. This has happened in history over and over. I think what I'm disturbed by is that Canadians, they say we're nice. I would disagree. I think we're arrogant and smug at times because we seem to think we are completely immune to going through tyranny. And what the other countries, maybe to turn it around, maybe people are racist. Maybe they think that us in Canada can't have tyranny like they do in other countries and have had in other places. What is it, people? What makes us think we're immune? And until people recognize that not everybody in power is as nice and benign as they are, I sense we're not going to get very far, and I don't think we're not going to vote for the right people. We're going to vote for wolves in sheep's clothing that say nice things. So what I see in Canada is a lot of people that want to be nice and have no idea what that even means, and I think that's going to be our downfall. And I'm sure in parts of Europe and in the UK, you can probably see that in bits and pieces as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Kelly Lamb, out in Saskatchewan. You're doing a great job from what we've seen from you, of course. We've always needed a person out there, so we think you're filling the role very well. Kelly Lamb, much bigger vocabulary than myself. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, okay?
You as well, and please bring me in for more Downton Abbey discussion. Thank you.
Very good, very good. I couldn't believe when they killed him off with the car accident, Lewis. It was pretty ridiculous. The Crowley family really lives on, you know. Are we pulled away from YouTube yet, or did you say we're going to? Let's do that now, Lewis, so that you can really, you know, get your jabs in on me. Go to rebelnews.com/live streams. You can join us on Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey. And of course, the links are in the description. I don't need to ask Olivia this time if they're in there. I'm confident.